Hello everybody, welcome back to American Textbook Reading. I'm Brian Stuart. We're going over Unit 6, Choosing Community Leaders. So when we're talking about being good citizens, remember we have to choose our community leaders. So in this unit you will discover the process of choosing community leaders. The process means how do we do it, right? We can see a little diagram here. Somebody's voting, right? They put in many choices. We'll talk about that in this unit. But this is the process, how people choose their leaders. And of course, this is particular for American society, American textbook reading, but we're going to take a look mostly at how Americans choose their leaders. Let's take a look here. First of all, what is a leader? Right? If we're talking about how to choose a leader, well, first of all, we need to talk about what a leader is. A leader is a person, right? Leader is a person who is in charge of. In charge of. You are in charge of means you are responsible for. You are in charge of a group. The person who is in charge of a group, they're responsible for that group. They lead that group. They tell the group what to do. If the group has a problem, they take responsibility. They are the ones who take the responsibility or the blame if something goes wrong. They are the leaders. Let's take a look. Here we have a picture of a leader. This is a politician. The politician is basically supporting or getting to know his voters. His voters are coming out and he's signing things for them. So they want to meet him. They want to meet their leader. And of course, this is very typical in America. These people want to meet the leader. They want him to sign something so they can remember that person or the experience of having met their leader. So basically, this would be an example of a politician or a political leader in America. Now, remember, I just used that word politician. Politician. A politician is a leader in politics, right? A community leader, politician. And this is an example of a politician. Now, another type of politician is a mayor. A mayor is the leader of a city or town. Of course, in politics, you have many different types of leaders. You have different areas, right? And small areas and big areas. Depending on the area, that depends on what exactly we call the leader. There are different words for the leaders depending on how big of an area or what type of area or region that person is a leader for. If we're talking about a city or a town, a small city, or it could be a large city, but a city is smaller, of course, than other regions. A city or town, we call that person a mayor. Okay, this is the mayor of Los Angeles, right? He's the mayor of Los Angeles. So each city has a leader. They are called the mayors, the mayor. Okay, when you choose for the leader in politics in a democratic country, of course, what are you doing? You are voting. To vote. To vote as a verb means to make a choice. So, of course, in a democratic country, you have many different choices. Many people want to be the leader. Sometimes, usually there's two, at least two, but sometimes you can have 3, 4, 5. You could have a whole group of people who are trying to get the same leadership position. And we, as citizens, have to choose between them. We have to vote. So vote, by the way, is a verb, but vote can also be a noun, right? What was the vote? What was the final vote? You could say that. What was the final vote? That means what was the final count, right? What was the final vote? Who got the most votes? Or you can also use it that way. I got a vote. I cast my vote for somebody. You could also use it in that way. Cast your vote, which is basically the same as this, vote. When you vote, you cast your vote. Each person has one vote. You cast your vote, that means you vote. You record your decision, to put it in a box, this is a simple way, and then afterwards they take all the votes out of the box and they figure out who won. So vote can be a verb, This is what this girl is doing. Vote can also be a noun. It's what she's putting in the box. This is a vote. Okay, her vote. What was your vote? Okay. Now we have an election. When people vote, they have an election. You vote in an election. When election is choosing a leader or leaders by a vote, right? By a vote. So when everybody gets together and they cast their votes, right? They put their votes in, then that is choosing a leader that we call an election. Now, of course, this is a representation of the American election in 2008. This is President Obama and this is Senator John McCain. And they were the two contenders for the election. Contenders or opponents. Contenders. Contenders are people who try to win the vote. He was a contender. He was a contender. Contenders are people who struggle or fight against each other in order to win something. Contenders aren't just people, politicians, but contenders can also be boxers or sports players, people who try to win something. These guys wanted to win the election. They are contenders. And the election, of course, is choosing a leader or leaders by a vote. So contenders will have an election and you will choose one of those people and that will be the person who is elected to office. Okay. Count. Of course, when you're voting and you're putting many votes in a box, right? Afterwards, you have to count those votes. Count. To say numbers one by one and to know how many there are. So, of course, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am counting. I'm saying the numbers one by one. And also, after I'm finished, right? I'm picking the votes 1, 2, 3, 4. After I'm finished, I know what the count is. I know how many there are. There are 50 votes for contender A, and there's 40 votes for contender B. Okay? So that's what we do when we count the votes. We find out who won the election. Who won the election? Let's count the votes. Okay. An adult. What is an adult? An adult is a person who is fully grown. Why are we worried about adults when we're talking about election? Because only adults can vote in election. I'm sorry, you're too young to vote in your country's elections. But when you get older, when you become an adult, then it's your right, it's also your responsibility to vote in the election. You should vote in election. That's what makes a good citizen, right? You should vote in an election. Okay, but adults vote in elections. Now, ballot. Ballot is another word, by the way, for vote. Remember I taught you guys that vote is a noun. You put your vote, you cast your vote. We can also say you cast your ballot. It's another word that means the same thing. Cast your ballot. Cast a ballot, cast your vote. But a ballot here, you can see that a ballot has many names on them. That's very interesting, right? We can see many different names here. And a ballot is just basically a piece of paper on which you mark your vote. Again, vote here is used as a noun. Your vote, right? Your choice. Okay, so here we can see this is a ballot, looks like for the 2008 presidential election. Did you know that there are actually more than just two people who ran for the president in America? We really only concentrate on the two most famous people who are running for election, Barack Obama and John McCain. Those are the two most famous people in the 2008 election. But did you know there were actually other people running for the president? There was Ralph Nader, Bob Barr, I never heard of him, Cynthia McKinley, I never heard of that person, and Alan Keyes, never heard of him. These two, usually only two people get the most attention because they are from the major parties, the major political parties. But there are other political parties in America. Maybe some people don't know about them because they're not famous. They don't get a lot of attention. But the two main parties, they get all the attention. People know about them. Barack Obama and John McCain were for the 2008 presidential election. But I've heard of Ralph Nader before, but I haven't heard of these three people before. But they're also on the ballot in the 2008. They're less known candidates. Okay. We talked about mayor before. Mayor is a leader of a town or a city. But if you look at a city, you go one region bigger in America, that's county. And then one region bigger than county, by the way, I'll write that down for you, county. County. Then you have many counties, and that makes up a state. Now, the leader of a state is called the governor. And you know him, right? He's also a famous movie actor. But it's interesting that he also became the governor of the state of California. The governor is the leader of a state in the United States. Okay, so when we're talking about the United States, there are many states in the United States. California is one of those states. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back, the Terminator, right? He became the governor of the state of California. That's a very interesting career, right? From movie actor to governor. Of course, a U.S. president, President Reagan, also did the same thing in the 1980s. He was a famous movie star. He became the president of the United States. So it's not, it's sometimes it happens. Okay, but anyway, Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor of California. He's not the governor now, but he was for quite a while, and is very famous governor of the state of California. Okay, when we're talking about elections, right, we've talked about vote, we've talked about election, we've talked about ballot. These things are all talking about making a decision, right? When you make a decision is a noun, right? A decision is a choice. A decision is basically a choice. What do you choose? Do you choose yes or do you choose no? It's not just yes, no. You make a decision about what you want to eat for lunch, right? Do you want to eat a sandwich or do you want to eat spaghetti? You make a decision, right? So it can be yes, no. It can be you have many things and you choose one of those things. You make a decision about what you want to do. You make a choice. A choice you make. You make a decision. You make a choice after thinking carefully. So first of all, you think about the choices, right? You think about either different people in an election. You think about different foods you want to eat for lunch. You think about whether you want to agree with something or disagree with something. You think about it carefully, and then you make a decision. And that's what a decision is. Okay, let's take a look at our chart here. We have an election. Election, this is the process of election, right? The process of choosing community leaders. First of all, we need to make a decision. Then we go to vote, and then we have our leader. Let's take a look at making a decision, right? By the way, this sign shows Republicans and Democrats. It's back to that ballot I was talking about before. Barack Obama and Senator John McCain were the two famous candidates for the 2008 presidential election. John McCain was in the Republican Party, and Barack Obama was part of the Democrat Party, Democrat. So somebody's a Republican or Democrat. Usually that's the decision that Americans make. Do they want to vote Republican or do they want to vote Democrat? And that's a very common decision that many people make. Let's take a look here. So we see again, Democrat and Republican. So in this case, whoa, they voted Democrat, then they voted Republican. These are different people voting, right? All sorts of different votes. So, whoa, and we even turn the page to a different side, and there's many different people who are choosing. They're making a decision, they're casting their vote, they're deciding who they want to vote for. Like I said before, it's usually Democrat, Republican, but there are other choices. There are other parties in America. Usually Democrats, though, we say they want to change things. They want to make things different. They have different ideas. Republicans usually are more conservative. They want things to stay the same. They're more for traditional values, keeping things the same way. That's the main difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Okay, so after you've made a decision whether you want to vote Republican or Democrat, then you go to vote, and you go to a voting booth. Usually it's not a box like this. You go into a booth, you close the curtain, and then you fill out your ballot, and then you maybe put it in. Of course, nowadays it's becoming electronic, so people will do it by electronic vote too, and it will punch a ticket or something. And then, so they vote, then they count the vote, and then a leader is chosen. And remember, leaders can be presidents, governors, or mayors. We talked about mayor, leader of a city or town. We talked about governor, a leader of a state. Of course, you already know president. President is the leader of a country. Okay, let's take a look at a video here. This is a video of Ron Paul. Now, he was a Republican contender for the presidential election. Of course, he didn't get it. The Republicans will get together and they will have many different candidates. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt him. He's very interesting. But basically, he's giving a speech here. Ron Paul is one of probably 7 or 8 different contenders who are trying to get the Republican nomination, right? The Republican Party will choose one person out of 7 or 8 people, and that will be their person that they want to be the president. Ron Paul was one of them. But this is an example of a debate or a speech where he is talking to a group of people. He's trying to make them decide for him. He wants their support. He wants them to choose him, so that he wants them to decide or make a decision to support him. And that's what, of course, all political leaders do. They make speeches and they try to get the support of the people. They try to get the votes of the people. Okay, let's take a look at our word matching exercise. Here we need to match each of these words with a definition. Here are our words. Let's go over them. Leader, leader. Mayor, mayor. Vote, vote. Election, election. Count, count. And adult, adult. Okay, let's go over what these words mean. Let's go over the definitions. Number 1, a person who is in charge of a group. Somebody who is in charge of a group is somebody who leads a group. Of course, we call somebody who leads a group, we call that person a leader, right? A leader is someone who is in charge of a group. Number 2, a person who is fully grown, not a child. A person who is fully grown, they are, of course, an adult. And why are we studying adult? Because only adults can vote. Children, I'm sorry, children can't vote yet, right? You have to wait until you're an adult, and then you can vote to choose your leader of the country or the city or the state. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. The leader of a city or a town. We talked about different types of leaders, right? Actually, we have the name of a certain type of leader in here. Do you see a certain type of leader? A leader of a city or a town in this box. If you zero in on mayor, you would be correct. Mayor. A mayor is the leader of a city or a town. Let's move on to number 4. To make a choice. Now remember, when you have some different options, you can say yes or no. Or you have many different people. You can choose which person you want to be your leader. What are you doing? You're making a choice. When you make a choice, what are you doing? You are, of course, voting. You vote. To make a choice, you vote. Okay? So you can vote yes, you can vote no. When you choose between a bunch of people to be your leader, then you are making a choice. You are voting. Okay? Number 5, choosing a leader or leaders by a vote. So when you have a vote, when you hold a vote, and many people come together and they cast their votes or they cast their ballots, what do we call that event? It's a certain event, isn't it? What do we call that event? We call that event an election. So it's called an election. Number 6, to say numbers one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, and to know how many there are. So you're saying numbers one by one because you want to know how many total you have. What are you doing? You are counting. So you want to know how many total you have. You count. One, starting at 1, going all the way up to however many you need, right? And that's how you count, and then you figure out how many you have. Especially how many votes did one person get as opposed to another person. And that's how a leader is chosen. The person with the most votes is chosen as the leader. You have to count those votes. Okay, let's take a look here at a chart. Now this is particular to the United States, right? We've been talking mostly about elections and making decisions for leaders, and most of what we've been talking about is particular to the United States. When we take a look at the United States, we can see a couple of fun facts on the bottom. One, the United States has 50 states. And we see a state has many cities and towns. So basically what this is doing, it's going from the very wide, the very big region, the whole country, and it's going down to a smaller region and a much smaller area. So we have the United States, we have a state, we have a city or town. Let's take a look at this video. By the way, there are 50 states, as it says down here. If you look at all these divisions, there are 50 states. These are 48 states up here. 48 states right here. They're all together. They're all connected. These two states, 1 and 2, are not connected. They're away or apart from the rest of the 48 states. Alaska, of course, is up here, and Hawaii, way over here. It's off this chart, right? It's out in the Pacific Ocean. But these are the other two states that are not connected to the lower 48. We say these are the lower 48. Lower 48. Lower because Alaska is north. Okay, lower 48. But these are all states. Let's take a look at a video. Now this, of course, is America. Like I said before, here's Alaska, here's Hawaii. Of course, they're put down here. They're not really here, right? They're over here and up here, respectively. But this is a chart of the United States of America, the country. And if we take a look at the chart here, we can see we can outline one state and bring it up so we can see one state here. And this, of course, is the state of California. And there's a couple of islands here that are also part of the state of California. Okay, so that's interesting. We saw that diagram. They singled it out and they zoomed in right on the state. So basically what we start off with a very big region, the United States, right? And then we singled out to California, right? But we can go one more very small in region, right? So when we're talking about size, this is the biggest size, smaller size is a state, and the smallest size here we have is city, city or town. Okay, and by the way, this is the city of Los Angeles. You've probably heard of it. It's a very famous city. It's right about there in California. Well, this pen isn't very close. But anyway, it's about right there in California. So we start out really far. We zoomed in on California, and then we zoomed in on a city in California. Now, when we talk about these different regions, we can talk about the leaders of these different regions. Of course, the city or town, we have a mayor. Here we have the governor. And over here we have, what is the leader of a country? Do you remember? That's right, a president. President. So the president. So the leader of a country is a president, the leader of a state is a governor, and the leader of a city or town is a mayor. Okay, so let's move on. And now we have a question. I hope you paid attention to the last slide. Okay, write the correct type of leader for each picture. We just covered this, so this should be easy. Now let's take a look at our pictures, 1, 2, and 3. We have pictures showing the different regions we just talked about. Number 1 is Georgia. By the way, Georgia is a state. It's a state over here on the east coast of America, southern east coast of America. That is a state. What did I just say the leader of a state is? The leader of a state is a governor. So a governor is the leader of a state. That's picture number 1. Picture number 2, we have the whole country. We have 50 states, the lower 48, Alaska, and Hawaii included with the lower 48. So this is the entire country of America. Do you remember the leader of the country the leader of a country? We call that person a president. It's not just of America. Many countries have presidents, right? Korea has a president. So the leader of a country is called a president. Not all countries call their leaders presidents. Some countries call them different names. But for America, Korea, many other countries in the world, president is a very common name for the leader of the country. Over here, this is the smallest unit or the smallest region of our 3 pictures. It is a city or a town. Very beautiful, actually, by the way. It's very nicely reflected in the water, or the lake or the sea that it's next to. But what is the leader of a city or town? What do we call that person? We call that person a mayor. Okay, so we have governor for a state, president for a country, mayor for a city. Okay, let's look at our true-false questions here. We have 3 questions. Now we need to determine whether they are true or false. Actually, 3 statements, right? So number 1, a ballot means choosing a leader or leaders by a vote. Does that sound right? Sounds a little strange, right? Because a ballot, remember, is the piece of paper where you choose somebody. So a ballot is a piece of paper. It's not an event like choosing a leader or leaders by a vote. That's an event. What is the event that means you choose a leader or leaders by vote? What is that event? That would be an election. So this is not true. We have to change, if we changed ballot to election, and if we change, of course, if we change to election, we have to put an, right? An election. An election means choosing a leader or leaders by vote. That would be true. But we have to change the sentence, so the sentence is false. Okay, number 2. A mayor. Now we're coming back to what we talked about, right? Leaders of different places. A mayor is the leader of a state in the United States. So think about that. Remember, we talked about cities, states, and countries, and we talked about the leaders for each. Is a mayor the leader of a state? No, that's not right. That's false, right? What is the leader of a state? Do you remember? Of course, it is governor. So a governor. A governor is the leader of a state in the United States. Again, we'd have to change the sentence, so that's false. Okay, number 3. A decision means a choice you make after thinking carefully. So a decision is a choice, right? Especially after you think carefully. Does that sound right? Absolutely, that is correct. It is true. A decision is a choice you make after thinking carefully. Okay, well that wraps up the vocabulary section for this unit. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and take a look at the reading. Okay, welcome back to the reading section. We're of course talking about the process of choosing a leader. So the passage is going to talk about, how do we choose leaders in our communities, whether we live in a city, a state, or a country. Okay, in communities in the United States of America, that's where we're focusing on, every adult can choose their leaders. So we're focusing in on the United States of America. That's the focus, or that's where we're describing the process. We're using that country as an example. In communities in the United States of America, every adult, remember I talked about that, adults can vote. I'm sorry, children can't vote, but adults vote. Adults can choose their leaders. Okay, adults can choose the leaders. What does that mean? This means, what does it mean that every adult? This means only people 18 years or older can vote. Why? Because people who are 18 years or older, they are adults, right? Adults are fully grown people, 18 years or older. When you become 18 years old in America, you now have the right to vote. You can choose your leader. So that's what it means. And that's a good expression, by the way. This means. So if you make a statement, every adult can choose their leader, what does that mean? This means, okay? This means only people 18 years or older can vote. Use this. It's much better to use this than it, because we're referring back to a concept or an idea. It's better to use this. Don't use it means. Say this means. Okay. In a town or city, people can vote for a mayor, right? We talked about that. Town or a city, the leader of a town or a city is a mayor. Okay, so in this community, because we're talking about communities, in communities in the United States, a town or a city is a community, and the leader of a town or a city is a mayor. People can vote for a mayor. Another type of community is a state. In a state, people vote for a governor. So a state is another type of community. People can vote for a governor. A governor is a leader of a state. Okay? So we have two examples there. Continuing on, we can see people choose their leaders in an election. So these events, right, these things that happen when people get together and they cast their vote, they cast their ballots, that event is called an election. During an election, during an event, during an election, they go to the voting place and mark their decision on a ballot in the voting booth. Okay? Long sentence, right? So basically during means during the time or the time that something is happening, usually an event. So an event takes place over time. And inside of that time, during an election, they go to the voting place. The voting place can be, different places, schools, libraries, community halls. Different places are used for voting places. They mark their decision. Mark their decision. Remember, decision is a choice on a ballot. Ballot is the piece of paper that people mark. In the voting booth. We didn't talk about booth before, but booth is basically a place where you walk into. It's a small usually temporary like room. You pull a curtain across, you step inside, you pull the curtain back, and you mark your ballot. And then you cast your ballot. And this girl, it's interesting because she's not an adult, but I think what she's doing, she's voting in a school election. You can probably vote in your school election for your school presidents and your school leaders, but you can't vote in the city, or the state, or the presidential election, the national election. But anyway, she's casting her ballot. She's putting her vote into the box, right? She's casting her ballot. Okay, so people will do this, and they will go into the voting booth, and they will mark their ballots. Now, afterwards, after everybody has voted, after the election is finished, these ballots are counted in the election, and a new leader is chosen. In America, people vote for new mayors and governors every 4 years. Okay, so what is this? What are we talking about here? So the ballots are counted, right? We talked about counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. People go and count the ballots. It's a big job. A lot of people are necessary to count all the ballots in the election. A new leader is chosen because after you count, you know which contenders got the most votes. The person with the most vote, that is the new leader. That person is the new leader. In America, of course, different countries have different time periods. In America, people vote for new mayors and governors every 4 years. So a term, this, by the way, is a term of office. A term of office. So mayors and governors have a 4-year term of office. When they are elected, they are only a mayor or a governor for 4 years. After 4 years, they have to run for election again. They might lose, but they might win. Mayors can be mayors for a very long time. Governors can be governors for a long time. By the way, the president in America also has just a 4-year term, but a president can only be elected twice. So a president in America can only be president for 8 years at a time if he or she wins the re-election. Okay, so anyway, people vote for new mayors and governors every 4 years. After 4 years, there's a new election. The leader makes important decisions. So just like people, citizens, make a decision to vote for a leader, then the leader makes important decisions about the community, right? That's how we choose what we want to happen in the community. The leader tells us before the election what he or she will do. We decide, okay, we want them to do that. Then the leader should do those things, right? That's how we participate in changing our community or making our community a good place to live. So, therefore, every citizen who is an adult should not miss this chance to vote. Voting is a chance. It's a right. It's a privilege, really. Adults don't have to vote, right? Nobody's forcing them to vote. But because adults can vote, they can make changes to their community, they can choose the leaders who will make decisions about their community, they should not miss that chance to vote. Okay, let's take a look at a video here. This video is about voting, right? vote. You should vote, right? Here's the ballot box. Somebody comes along, they put their vote into the ballot box, and then that will be the election. Okay, so that wraps up kind of the reading section right there. We've seen the process of voting, right? And we've seen a couple of important concepts about, mayors and governors are elected for only 4 years. Also presidents, the president of the United States is elected for 4 years. All adults should vote. Okay, well, let's move on to our reading skill chart. Main idea and details. What is the main idea of the reading passage? Every adult can choose their leaders. That's the main idea. Every adult, right? People who are 18 years or older, they can choose their leaders. Now, what's the details? What are the supporting details? We have 4 supporting details to this main idea. We need to fill in the blanks in each of the 4 details. Our blanks, the words to fill in the blanks are decision, election, governor, ballot, and mayor. So let's take a look at the first detail. People vote for a beep in a town or city. Those are our key words because what are we looking for in a town or city? What type of leader leads a town or city? Which one of these words here? If you choose, over here we see mayor, that's right, that fits. People vote for a mayor in a town or a city, right? So when you're looking for the leader of your town or city, you vote for a mayor. The second detail. Now people vote for a beep, almost the same as A, but now we're talking about a state, not town or city, we're talking about a state. So a mayor is the leader of a town or city. Who is the leader of a state? Which word fits in here? If you choose governor, that would be correct. People vote for a governor in a state. Okay, good. So we got mayor and governor. Actually, there are 2 types of leaders here. They're out of the way. Now we're looking at different words. People choose their leaders in a what or an what? In a decision, in an election, or a ballot? Which sounds right? If you chose election, that would be true. Remember, election is the event when people choose their leaders. When people get together, they choose their leaders. That is an election. Okay, now we have 2 blanks in the last detail. People mark their beep on a beep, okay? We have 2 words, ballot and decision. So remember, ballot is the piece of paper, and you make or mark your decision on the ballot, okay? So you mark your decision. You think about it carefully, you make your choice, you mark your decision on the piece of paper that is the ballot. People mark their decision on a ballot. Okay, good. Let's move on. Let's go over the reading comprehension questions. Number 1, every what can choose their leader. So every what can choose their leader. We have choices A, B, or C. Every president, every ballot, every adult. Well, right away we can see ballot doesn't make sense because ballot is a thing. Things can't choose their leaders. President and adult are people. People can choose their leaders. But what kind of people choose their leaders? Do presidents choose their leaders? The president is the leader of the country. There's really nobody higher than a president in politics, right? They're the top. So they don't choose their leaders. That would be strange. Adult, well, adult is a common citizen. Everybody, anybody who is 18 years or older in a nation, well, yeah, sure, they can choose their leader. So adults choose their leaders. Number 2, in a beep, and we can see different types of things here, state election, state mayor, state count. In a beep, people vote for a governor. So when do people vote for a governor? This question is like, when do people vote for a governor? In a state election, in a state mayor, in a state count. Well, only one of these things is an event, right? This is an event. In a state election, people vote for a governor. Not in a state mayor. That doesn't make sense. A mayor is not an event. You don't vote for another person in another person, right? Mayor is a person. So that doesn't make sense. That's silly. See, in a state count, a count is not an event, right? That's just something that you do to figure out how many of something you have. So that doesn't make sense. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Ballots are counted in an election. And then we see and but, and. So let's pay attention to those words there. Ballots are counted in an election, and a new leader is named. So, what and means is that both are true. Ballots are counted in an election, true, and a new leader is named. Does that sound correct? That does sound correct, doesn't it? That's the answer. Because first you have to count the ballots, and once you know what the count is, then you know who the leader is. So then the leader is chosen. Let's look at B and C for practice. But a leader chooses the new leader. That doesn't make any sense, right? Why would you have ballots if a leader is going to choose the new leader? That doesn't make sense. C, and the community is chosen. The community is chosen? No, nobody chooses the community. The community is already there, right? So that doesn't make sense. Okay, number 4. A mayor is the leader of a town or city. That's true. A mayor is the leader of a town or city. And then we see president, mayor, governor. So we're going to look for something that's also true, right? Because and means something else is true, right? This is true. What else is true? A mayor is the leader of a town or city, and a president is the leader of a state. Is a president the leader of a state? No. A president is not the leader of a state. That's not true, so that's not the answer. And the mayor is elected by the president. The mayor is elected by the president? If the president elected the mayors, he would be so busy all year round because there's so many cities. How could he elect all those mayors? That doesn't make any sense, right? B is not correct. And a governor is the leader of a state. Is a governor the leader of a state? Absolutely, that is the correct answer, right? A mayor is the leader of a town or city, and a governor is the leader of a state. That's true. Okay, let's move on to our chart that we saw before. This chart shows the process of choosing community leaders. We have election here. So what we need to do is figure out what is the process. It's kind of like chronological or time order, right? What's first, what's next, what's final, okay? Over here we have, you can see there are different choices to be made. You can vote Republican or you can vote Democrat. When you do that, what are you doing? You are making a decision. So you have to make a decision. Am I going to vote Democrat or am I going to vote Republican? What am I going to do? Make a decision. After a person, an adult, has made their decision, what do? They go and they vote. They cast their vote in an election. So these people are voting, okay? Now, after the votes are counted, what happens after the votes are counted? What can you imagine? You can imagine that the leaders are chosen. Leaders are chosen. And what kind of leaders do we have? Of course, we have a president who is the leader of a country. What is the leader of a state? A governor. And what is the leader of a city or a town? A mayor. So leaders are chosen, and these are 3 types of leaders. These are 3 examples of leaders. So basically this chart is going over what we learned in this unit. We've talked about the process of choosing community leaders. You have to make a decision, right? There are not just, by the way, remember, there's not just 2 political parties in America. There's lots, but the main 2, the ones that get the most attention, Republicans and Democrats. You have to decide between the 2. Which one will you vote for? When you made your decision, then you go and vote. But only adults vote, right? Sorry, only adults 18 years or older. They vote. After the vote, there's a count, and the leader is chosen, and there's many different types of leaders. Whew. Kind of an interesting process, kind of a long process, but it's a very important process. And all adults in democratic countries go through this process to choose their leaders. It's a very important process. It's what helps make us a democratic society. It helps us choose what we want for our communities. It's a very important decision to make. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here. We'll see you guys next time. Hope you've learned a lot in this lesson. Take care, everybody.